Hi, I'm Barbara Rumkunis, and this is your Exeter History Minute. Exeter's picturesque town hall is a popular place for political speeches, especially during primary years. It might be because it looks so New Englandy, like it dropped out of a Currier and Ives lithograph. But more likely the draw is because Abraham Lincoln spoke here in 1860. In one of our earlier History Minutes about presidential visits, I made a quip that because he wasn't actually president at the time of his visit, there was no commemorative plaque. Well, you'll be happy to hear that oversight has been corrected. In October of 2014, the New Hampshire Division of Historic Resources approved Exeter's historic roadside sign, which we dedicated on a damp, chilly day, not unlike the day he spoke here. So what brought Lincoln to Exeter in 1860? We can thank Lincoln's son, Robert. The previous summer, when Robert was 16, he came east from Springfield, Illinois, hoping to enter Harvard. To his great disappointment, he failed the entrance exams. The college still felt that he had potential, so the suggestion was made that he spend a year cramming at a prep school. The one chosen was Phillips Exeter Academy. It had a good reputation, and his father had an old friend in town named Amos Tuck. Tuck had served with Abraham Lincoln in the U.S. Congress from 1847 to 1850. Robert knew the Tuck family, so the school seemed like a good fit. Most likely the Lincolns were glad to have someone they knew keeping an eye on young Robert. While he kept his nose to the grindstone at the academy, Robert's father was invited to New York to make a political speech about his views on the spread of slavery in the Western Territories. The speech he gave at New York's Cooper Union Institute on February 27th catapulted him onto the national stage. The trip east also gave Lincoln an excuse to head north to New Hampshire to visit his son. Lincoln arrived in town on February 29th, a leap day in 1860. He spent the next 2 days making speeches in Manchester, Concord, and Dover before returning to Exeter, and on Saturday, March 3rd, as it was described in the Exeter newsletter, A. Lincoln, the champion of the Northwest, addressed the Republicans of this town at the town hall, which was well filled with an enthusiastic audience, with a sprinkling of ladies. The newsletter doesn't mention, probably because it was too polite, how strange Lincoln appeared to the crowd. Robert's classmates would later remark that when they first saw this awkward, lanky man with a weird face approach the podium, they were embarrassed for their friend. His voice was high-pitched with a nasal Western twang, but once he began to speak, with his carefully laid out arguments and the comparison of slavery to a snake in the children's bed, he was able to convince even the most complacent New Englander that the extension of slavery in America couldn't go on unchallenged. There's one little nagging mystery about this visit that we still haven't figured out. Where did Lincoln stay in Exeter? For years it was believed that he stayed with the Tuck family on Front Street, which seems likely since they were friends. But a letter from Tuck to Lincoln found at the Library of Congress tells us otherwise. Tuck was in St. Louis that weekend. In the letter, he gently bawls out his friend, "I very much regretted that I was absent when you were at Exeter, and was sorry you did not call upon my family even in my absence." So he wasn't at the Tuck's house. A sentimental favorite would be the Squamscott Hotel, where local legend tells us Amos Tuck founded the Republican Party in 1854. But there's no paper trail, and the Squamscott never bragged about it in later years. He may have simply stayed at Robert's boarding house, run by Mrs. Clark in the Folsom Block. We know he took Sunday dinner there. Until somebody invents a Wayback Machine, we may never know where Lincoln slept. Before that Sunday dinner, Lincoln and Robert had to attend church. It was a requirement of all Academy students at the time. They went to the Second Parish Church, which no longer exists in town. The pew they sat on, however, was carefully kept, and you can see it today at the Congregational Church of Exeter. The following day, father and son parted. Lincoln continued on his speaking tour. Robert was still in Exeter in May when he got word that his father had been nominated as the Republican candidate. He was at the bowling alley when he got the word. Like teenagers everywhere, his first response was to remark, "Good, I will write home for a check before he spends all of his money in the campaign." Some things never change. We have lots more information about Abraham Lincoln's visit to Exeter on our website at www.exeterhistory.org.